I never trusted rendered content even when Google said it was fine. It's not ideal for large language models either. In some cases, they may be able to access it, but they cannot render on their own. Today, I want to show you a few ways you can check if your web page is using rendering for critical SEO elements like title tags, text, images, internal links, etc. Let's hop right into Screaming Frog. First things first, we're going to set things up. So let's go to Configuration, Crawl Config. Then we're going to go to Extraction here on the left, and we're going to go all the way down here in the middle, and we're going to store HTML, and we're going to store rendered HTML, because those are the two things we want to compare. Next thing we want to do is make sure that we are able to render during our crawl. So go to rendering and click this little drop down and choose JavaScript and hit OK. Next thing I'm going to do is switch my mode here from Spider, which is probably going to be your default, and then change that to list because in this case, I just want to crawl one URL. If you have a handful of URLs, you can use this, or if you want to try this on an entire site, you can do Spider. I'm going to pick on Joybird today. They sell mid-century modern furniture, and I'm on their chairs page. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that URL, and then I'm going to go ahead and drop that into Screaming Frog. So I'll just click paste, and here you can see my URL that it's going to crawl. So go ahead and click OK, and we'll let Screaming Frog finish. Once it's finished, you're going to hover over this kind of menu navigation here, and I just scroll down and you'll see it move from side to side. Go to the JavaScript tab, and here you can see the URL that we crawled. Click that so we have some additional options. But the first thing I'm going to look at is just over here to the right. And I like to look at word count change and JavaScript word count percentage. You can see here that quite a bit has changed when JavaScript, when rendering came into play. And that's what we're concerned about here, because this is what large language models like ChatGPT or Claude, etc., can miss. What's happening here is you basically have two versions of the code on your page. You've got the static version, or like the initial version of code, the HTML, and then you've got the dynamic version, which is after a rendering process happens. Normally when JavaScript comes into play and starts doing a bunch of stuff to your page. You don't have to know all the technical details, but just know that there are two versions of the code. And in my opinion, the static version is where you want all your critical SEO elements. And this is what Screaming Frog allows us to compare. So we see that there is a change happening when we go from static to rendered. When I click this URL, I get some additional options here in Screaming Frog down at the bottom. And I'm going to go all the way over to View Source, this tab right here. Okay, go ahead and click that. And there's a couple of selections you're going to do to make your life easier. First, show differences between original or static and rendered, like we talked about. And you can see right there, there's a lot of things in red. Those are things that are being removed from the static code. And then there are things in green. These are things that are being added after rendering. The other thing I like to do is select visible content. And this is just what it sounds like. It's things you can see on the web page that are being changed during this rendering process. If we scroll down a bit, okay, what I'm looking for are on-page elements that are being added in that would be critical to SEO. And I actually spot one right here. So I hope this isn't too small, but it basically says Soto apartment chair. Let's go back to the chairs page. Now I know that's probably a product, all right? So I'm gonna look into this a little more deeply. Before I do though, one thing that I'm thinking is I definitely want all products that are associated with the chairs category to be crawlable from this page or at least from a paginated URL. Okay, I want all the products in some way deeply connected with this category page because I want them to associate with that category page. That's really important for SEO success. Now watch what happens. First of all, I'm going to look for Soto apartment share. I'm not really seeing it come up. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go all the way to the bottom, and here I see one of these load more buttons. These very typically, when you click them, they're not linked. And so a search engine can't crawl and get to a paginated URL. Normally, you're going to click this, and the page is going to fetch more information. But this isn't something a search engine can do. They can't click like we can. So that fetch is not helping your SEO. Now watch what happens. When I click this load more button, look at the first product that shows up. It's the Soto apartment chair. I would be a little concerned that all the products that just came into view after I clicked load more, they might be missed by, certainly by an LLM if they were to reach this page, but potentially by a search engine as well. There are solutions for this issue, like traditional pagination. The main takeaway here is we've made a nice discovery. You might find some other things in that Screaming Frog comparison, but let me give you another tool and another technique to use. So I've got this Chrome extension. Let me open it up. It's called View Rendered Source. It's a fantastic extension. I've used it for years. And let's look at what it does. So you open up your web page and you simply click the extension. And here you've got raw code. And there's a bunch of different names for this, but that would be like the static HTML or the raw version of your file. Then you've got the rendered code, and then you've got your differences, just like Screaming Frog did. And what you want to do here, what I personally like to do, I like to start looking for critical SEO elements. So I might throw in the HTML tag for an H1. And look, I can see it here in the raw code. And let me just make sure it's, has the right text, and it sure enough says chairs if you can't see that. And that's great. And as I click to find another instance of it, it's in the rendered code, and then I go over to the difference, and there's no highlight on it. So that stays consistent from raw to rendered. That's great. That's going to help us a lot. It's going to count toward our SEO. I could also look for like title tag. Okay, so maybe I look up title. Let's go back to the first instance of it. All right, and here I can see it intact in the raw code. There's a couple of other instances here. Yep, and I can see it intact in the rendered. There is a slight change here happening in the difference column, but as I investigate it further, it's nothing significant, nothing that would hurt us, so we're okay. And I'll do this for critical portions of text on a page. I'll do it for images, certainly internal links. But this is another great tool, and you can kind of pair it with your Screaming Frog audit to make additional discoveries. Sorry, I lied. We're going to look at one other tool, and then I'll show you another technique. This tool is called Web Developer. Now, I can't verify how updated this is. I couldn't immediately find any information on this, but I've been using this for years, and I'm still using it, and it's still working just fine. Download and use it at your own risk, since I can't verify that it's being consistently updated. But it's been a tried and true for quite some time. And one thing you can do with it is click it, and you can disable JavaScript. Then you can go ahead and reload the page, and you can see differences. Here are some that I see on this page. First of all, there's no drop downs happening here. So one thing I would want to do is make sure that all the main navigation links are accessible without JavaScript. We'll check that in a second. I don't see any images happening here, so we want to make sure those are in the raw code as well, being seen. And you can also see there's no load more button, and even the read more button really doesn't work. So there may be some text that is being missed because it relies on rendering. Okay, so let's re-enable JavaScript and reload the page and investigate some of those things. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to open up the raw code. I'm on a Mac and I'm going to press Option Command U. All right. And I can see the source code of this page. This would be the raw source code. This is where I want all my critical SEO elements. And one thing I'm going to do is let's just hover over living room in the main nav. I'm going to look at sofas and sectionals. I'm looking in the lower left and I can see the URL is sofas dash and dash sectionals. So you go over to your source code and that's what you look for, slash sofas and sectionals. I can see one example of it. Looking at the HTML, if you're comfortable with this, I can see it's a list item within an unordered list. There's a hyperlink reference to that URL. And I can click on it. So I'm quite confident that that link, even though with JavaScript turned off, we weren't seeing it, it is in the source code. So I'm confident there. I can look for the images as well, but I wanted to quickly do this text exercise because for me, text is really critical. And one thing I'm going to do is let's just look up the word decorating, okay? Because that's one of the subheadings here after I clicked read more. Let's go ahead and look up decorating. All right, and I see one instance of it, but it's in this, white text mess. And what is this? Well, when I go find the HTML tag, I can see that it's a script, okay? And I'm a little worried about that. I really would prefer to see this decorating instance wrapped in a subheading tag like an H2 or an H3. I don't want to see it in a script. And, when I investigated this further, I noticed that a bunch of this text was in this script section as well. That makes me a little concerned for SEO. This would be an initiative. I want to hard code these. I want to wrap them in the correct HTML tags, whether it's a heading or a paragraph, whatever it is. And I want to get these in the raw code. I think with large language model visibility coming more into play these days, it's really important to understand what is in your raw code versus your rendered code. And my recommendation is to keep critical SEO elements in your raw code. Our tools today, like Screaming Frog, the View Rendered Source extension, Web Developer extension, and of course, looking at the source code of the page itself, are all going to help you audit for any difficulties LLMs or traditional search engines might have with accessing those critical elements. So take a page on your client's site or your own site, perform this audit, see if you spot anything, and let me know in the comments if you need help with a solution. I'll see you in the next video.